From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, I sit down with David McCan and we talk about what I call page builder potpourri. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast about page builders and the conversation that David and I had. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and here I'm with David McCan today, and we're going to talk about page builders. How are you today, David?
Doing well, Robert. How are you?
Not too bad for a cold winter day in Toronto in Canada, but that's about the norm, as you know. So, that's the way it is. So I thought we'd talk about page builders, and you're kind of somebody I look to for amazing page builder comparisons. You've been on the Page Builder Summit. You've kind of been all over the place on page builders. You run an amazing Facebook group. Why did you kind of sort of niche into page builders versus something else in WordPress?
Well, one of the first puzzles that I tried to solve with WordPress was how do you create templates for custom post types, the single and archive. And the pro page builders have a theme builder feature. So that's kind of fascinated me looking at the different options. It started out with Beaver Themer, I think, was the first or one of the first ones that really gave you that ability. And now there's probably a dozen different ones. They all do it a little bit differently. But anyway, that was the puzzle that, kind of caught my interest.
Yeah, it's funny when we start talking about what caught your interest with page builders. My first big experience with a page builder was a theme called Headway Themes, if you remember back in the day before they got into all kinds of financial trouble and other issues, which I don't want to get into. And they kind of worked, if you recall, on a system of block-based editing, which is kind of where we're headed now, isn't it?
Yeah, I was never a Headway user. I guess the first one that I got into was Dynamic Website Builder. It was like a Genesis child theme that had some builder-like, layout styling features. And then Divi was probably the first theme builder, option that I got into.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I think about page builders, and we know about things like Beaver Builder and Divi and Elementor and Oxygen and Brizzly, and we'll go there. But interestingly enough, the number one selling theme on ThemeForest is a theme that has a page builder built in. And it's the only theme that has ever on ThemeForest sold over $1 million, and that is Aveda, which is really interesting. And they have their own proprietary page builder. So that's how much page builders have impacted, right?
Yeah. It's made a big difference. It was the standard. It is the standard now. Mm-hmm. Gutenberg is making some inroads, I think, for certain types of sites. You can these days use Gutenberg instead of a page builder. But I think the page builders still have a lot more, deeper and more consistent layout and styling options.
So I would argue, and maybe you would disagree with me, that Gutenberg is a form of a page builder, and that, it's just another way of doing things. Would you agree or disagree? Or
it started out, I thought they were really focusing on being a content editor
Mhm.
because, when you go into Gutenberg, you get that notice and it tries to take you to kind of no distraction mode, distraction-free writing, as if, you're writing your blog post. And then it seems like they kind of switched and wanted to add more page builder like features. They may have had that plan all along, but that's kind of the way it seems to me. I think it's definitely getting page builder features now. That's for sure.
It's funny when you talk about that. I remember when Gutenberg was announced at WordCamp US like a number of years ago, and WordCamp Toronto was the weekend before, and all the buzz that weekend at WordCamp Toronto was Gutenberg was going to drop at WordCamp US the following week, and I was one of those really big naysayers 3 years ago, and I said, you'd never get me to use Gutenberg. And you can laugh at me now because, as you know, I'm kind of all in with Gutenberg on my own site and a couple other sites and buildings. So I think things evolve, and that's what we have to realize. And I think the whole purpose of either Gutenberg or a page builder like Beaver Builder Elementor is to give people the options of building a really good website with going no code. What are your thoughts on that one?
That's definitely one of the big selling points. And, from everything Matt Mullenweg has said, he wants to compete with the likes of Wix and other kind of site providers who have visual builders that are no code or, I think you can get in there if you're a developer, but, most people don't see any code. It's interesting that you bring up no code because I think there's a little bit of a movement, to not be afraid of code, kind of as a power user, you come across code snippets or, you have some experience with CSS, and a little bit of code can, save you needing to install another plugin or something. So I've seen people kind of more embracing code a little bit more these days than maybe they used to.
No, I would agree with that. And I don't know if you know this, I'm a programmer by trade. So even before I got into technical support and web design, I'm a programmer. And to be fair, I'm at the point now where I almost try to avoid writing code unless it's a snippet here, a snippet there. I think, if we keep going on this whole philosophy about, oh, we should write code to speed everything up, then maybe we shouldn't have a CMS and we should just write the website from scratch because that would speed everything up. So I'm kind of in that camp where I truly believe, though, people shortcut in the wrong spots. And I think one of the things they can do is actually go buy some really good web hosting and stop spending time in the new fold EIGs of the world and actually go buy something that's quite reasonable. And that would go a long way to speeding up their sites and not have to worry about code or a CMS.
Well, there's no arguing with that. Good hosting is the foundation, makes a big difference.
Yeah. And if you don't build from the bottom up, you're not going to get anywhere. So let's jump into page builders per se. You've kind of looked at them all. And I know on the Page Builder Summit, you did a bit of a comparison of several of them on video. By the way, which I really enjoyed. It was a well done session and one of probably my favorite non-Gutenberg session in the whole summit. So well done to you, David. What do you look for when you're looking at a page builder? Like, what's your criteria?
Well, of course, you don't want to have bugs,
Yeah.
things that, crash and burn on you. And I think consistency is important. Sometimes there'll be a product, a page builder where they'll have regression bugs, or it just they kind of never overcome some problems. It's all programs have bugs and problems, but it's kind of that consistent moving forward. I look for that, and David Wormsley has drilled into me over and over again. It's really important to take a look at the team behind the product and feel comfortable that they're people of integrity and who are looking out for their customers. So that's something, it's easy to overlook that. And then there's a strong element, and you alluded to this earlier, there's a strong element of personal preference. Some page builders click for some people and not for others. I've seen that with Beaver Builder and Elementor. Some people will, use Elementor and then go try Beaver Builder and say, "Oh, I just couldn't understand how it worked," and vice versa. So I think there's a bit of, kind of personal choice that goes beyond all the specs.
Yep. It's the old Coke and Pepsi or Apple and PC argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coke and Pepsi, that's a great a great analogy.
Yeah, and you'd never catch me dead with a Pepsi in my hand. So there you go. So there you go. But so that's a really good analysis, and I think personal look and feel has a lot to do with it. I have a saying in my business. One of the things is it's the tool that you know how to use well, not the tool all your friends tell you to use. And I think that's really important. Is if you decide to go with Divi, and I know a number of people say, for example, our Divi shops. They actually have learned to master their tool really well. And then when people say to them, well, why don't you switch to Beaver Builder or switch to Elementor? They look at you and say, why would I? I can do stuff in this tool very quickly.
Yeah, that's another good point. And not to keep mentioning David Wormsley, but that's often his response when people say, "Why don't you try this other builder?" He'll say, "Oh, I still don't know haven't mastered Beaver Builder yet. I'm still learning new things."
Yeah, and you can keep mentioning David. He's a friend, and I love what he talks about. So it's and he's often on WP Builds with Nathan Wrigley, and I just love these sessions they do where they're actually building up a business. They're doing one right now where they're taking you through building a development shop type business. It's quite interesting. So David's an amazing resource, and anybody should check him out, really, as you are. So we go from there. And I got to ask, and I know you've comparison page builders. Do you have a favorite page builder when you're developing, or do you kind of take it depending on what the project is?
Well, I think because I do a lot of reviews, I want to try everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when you're working on a site, that's the best time because you see kind of things deeper than you would see just, looking around and testing out. So I do and have used a lot of them. I think that just to kind of run through a few of the page builders, I think that for a while, I was really impressed with Elementor and where they're going, but there was a time when all of their new features were just kind of shiny animation, display related. They really neglected some of the dynamic data features. And then they had an update when they rolled out version 3 that was a disaster.
Yeah.
And about a year ago, they started with their experiments because they have a problem. They've got so many users. I think I saw them say 10 million users now. And they've got so many users, and there are all these third-party add-ons. So they have a real hard time making change and fixing things. So their solution for that was to do experiments that you could turn on or off in the admin. Well, I don't know for sure, but it doesn't look like any of those experiments, they've been going on for a year, have graduated to, out of experimental category. Maybe there have been some and I've missed them, but the list is getting pretty long.
Yeah,
So,
and they are the biggest page builder out there right now, are they not?
yeah, I think by a long shot, yeah. So, I was pretty gung ho on Elementor, but I've cooled on them a lot. I've been kind of waiting for them to, make a comeback, and they've done some good things. I think it seems like they're starting to implement some things. They have breakpoints, and I think they're going to have a flex container option coming out at some point. So, it does seem to me moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
But, I see lots of people talking about moving from Elementor to either Oxygen if they want to go kind of more developer centric, or Gutenberg. So, that's the way it looks to me, is that they've gotten so big that it's a little hard for them to pivot now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's getting really hard. Do you have thoughts on page builders like Beaver Builder or even Oxygen or Divi?
Yeah, I do. Beaver Builder, I think, is underrated. And I gave them a hard time for this because, for not having new features very often. But in terms of like Beaver Themer, I think has kind of the sweet spot of a, template builder. It has a lot of power and it's easy to use. It doesn't expose as much to the end user as Oxygen does. But for a lot of people, they don't need that. So, and it's very stable. So I really have a lot of respect for the Beaver Builder team, and I know that the community has probably had to put up with for years people saying, "Why aren't you using Elementor?" Or
Yeah.
now maybe people are telling them to use Gutenberg. So uh, anyway, and I used Divi. I mentioned before that was one of the first page
Okay.
builders I used. And I liked it at the time, but I had one Divi site that the owner of it never wanted any updates, so I never had a reason to change it. And just like in November, the owner, he's an author, and he came out. I'll just say it's a family. It's my father. He's published a bunch of books, and all of a sudden he has a new book coming out and he wants to totally redo his site.
Oh no.
So, so I jumped in, and I don't know if it's been so long since I've used Divi or it just hasn't kept up, but it was kind of painful. So, um, I switched over to using the Cadence theme and Gutenberg and Cadence blocks, and much smoother sailing for me. And like I said, that could be just what I'm used to, but
How's that experience going with Cadence? And as everybody knows, I'm kind of all in with Cadence these days on my site, and I've got a site for Crime Stoppers. I'm in one of the chapters in Toronto. I'm moving the Cadence in the process of. So, how's your experience been with that?
good. I use Cadence theme on WebTNG, my main site, and I'm real impressed. The developer, there's kind of profile. I think Tom Osborne from Generate Press is kind of similar. Really talented developer, a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah.
Well, same's true with Ben of Cadence. And just as you're using it, I'm sure you've seen this, there's just lots of little details and things he thought of make our lives easier. And I was a little nervous when Cadence was purchased. Liquid Web purchased Cadence, and I was wondering what would happen, but they've kept the innovations and updates going. The Cadence theme builder, which is part of the Pro theme, along with the Pro version of the blocks, Cadence blocks, is nice. It's easy to use, and there's a reason why it's growing really fast.
There is, and a shout out. Their marketing team has done a really amazing job up there too, as well. And one of the people involved in the big push of marketing is a good friend, Kathy Zant, who's been was at WordFence and then went to Ninja Forms and then the Cadence. And the team up there, from all I know inside, is just remarkable. Now, Cadence, for context, falls under the iThemes brand of Stellar WP, which is a Liquid Web brand. So just to put that up there, if people don't understand the relationship. And yeah, they've done an absolute amazing job, and I have nothing but good things to say about Cadence. So that's important. I think, and I think also what makes it happy. You alluded to this earlier with talking about David Wams, and we've chatted about this. It's finding a plugin or a theme that will be well supported and what the background is. And iThemes certainly has a tradition of supporting their plugins. So I think that really helps as well. I think you've got that name behind it, which is a big deal as well.
Yeah, I worry a little that, I get the sense that Ben Rittner is might be
Yeah.
under a lot of pressure
Yeah.
these days. I'm just kind of, this is like, a million mile away view.
Yeah.
But, I used to see on their blog pictures of them all, the family and, his sister, wife, and friends or whatever, going out on hikes and things. And I know that Chris Lima was, involved in all the purchases that have been going on with Liquid Web and Stellar.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he's mentioned is that he wants to kind of bring the best practices that the different products, the developers all had different experiences. And so he wanted to kind of take the best and get them to share and help each other. And I know that, not only do they have the Cadence theme, which is very advanced, general purpose theme. They have Cadence blocks, which, has a dynamic data options working with advanced custom fields and tool set.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have, a number of other plugins and features, and they just keep coming out. So I hope he's getting, I hope the team is growing and, he's not getting burned out.
Yeah, I agree with it. Now, you just mentioned Toolset, which is a plugin for dealing with custom fields. And I know it's not kind of the premises discussion, but it's worth diving into. Do you prefer advanced custom fields by ACF? Do you prefer pods, or do you prefer Toolset? Where do you kind of sit in that realm?
I was a tool set, advocate and fan for many years, and I really liked they had a kind of incremental development model, and I thought it was really good.
Hmm.
I think they were kind of struggling. Tool set, you can build almost anything with it. So I get the sense that there's a lot of support requests because
Yeah.
everyone wants to do something, individual, unique. And so it seems like the development has slowed down, and they've really kind of trying to focus in on a few things. And they do have tool set blocks. So that's an option for creating, your templates with toolset blocks with Gutenberg. So, I'm actually using toolset on WebTNG uh, because I've got a lot of custom post types and whatnot on that site. But all my other sites, I'm using Advanced Custom Fields or MetaBox.
Okay. So that's the other option. If you were doing WooCommerce, is there a page builder that works better that you know of, or is it kind of choose one with the exception of maybe Oxygen, which has had issues with Woo over the years? What's your feeling there?
I'm not a super WooCommerce expert, but I do see that there are a lot of third-party add-ons for WooCommerce in the Elementor ecosystem. Elementor itself, has been they released some new features for WooCommerce.
Yeah.
That's another area where they were kind of criticized. They kind of did some initial work and then they've just left it for a few years. But there are tons of third-party add-ons for customizing your WooCommerce store. It seems like the WooCommerce team, or they're focusing on Gutenberg. From what I've seen, WooCommerce doesn't work yet with full site editing. So I guess if you were to put me on the spot and I had to guess, I'd say Elementor.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair comment. I don't think Woo's quite there with FSE yet, and I don't think it will be there till after the 5.9 release. Personally, I think that's what we're kind of looking at. Do you have any concerns with 5.9 coming out with page builders, or do you just think it's going to be a quiet day in paradise?
I think we're going to find out next week.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how new users are going to, react because 2022 is a nice theme. It's very attractive, but it's a block based theme, so it'll be a new paradigm. And I'm curious to see if everything goes smoothly or if it's one of those things where agencies and freelancers say, well, I tried to go with a block based theme and the clients are just they had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking will
What
be the response?
Well, I know Cadence on the block side and the theme side said, if you're smart, don't turn on FSC. It's not on by default with Cadence right away. I think new users are going to go to blocks. I really do. So if you're jumping into the WordPress ecosystem today, I don't think you're necessarily going to go out and get a page builder. That's just my feeling. Now, I think a lot of dev shops will keep on doing what they're doing because they know it well. So I'm not a big fan of saying to people, go get blocks to Gutenberg because I did. One of the reasons I went that way was, and you've talked about this already in this podcast, is take a project and find out what how things work by implementing or testing on a live site or a live project. And I don't suggest people do what I did, but I actually moved my site to Gutenberg and did 90% of it on a live site, and then took the page builder in off at the last minute and then customized some stuff on the back end. I would almost tell 90% of the people to do this. Don't do what I did, please. But the reason I did go that way is I had over 200 blog posts, including at the time 150 podcast episodes. So it becomes really hard to keep stuff in sync. And that's, for the average site, that's not typical. And as you alluded to in a conversation we had on Facebook Messenger, I've got a lot going on, and I do. But that said, I think I think Tuesday might be a panic day where things will go in quietly. I've got RC3 running at the time of this record on a dev site, and I'm not with basically a copy of my live site, and I'm not seeing any major issues running around right now. So I think the delay from a pre-Christmas release, and by the way, WordPress, please just stop putting out releases in December. It's a bad time with Christmas coming, with e-commerce running. I think December has to come off the release schedule. And I've talked to several people up at Automatic about that. I think we need to get away from December releases. So the extra 6 weeks, I think, has bought them a lot of time, including things like learn.wordpress.org actually has a training plan. It's the first time ever that a major release has had a training plan up on learn.wordpress.org before release date. So that's, kudos to people like Courtney Robertson and people like that and her team for getting that together. They've done an amazing job. There's been a lot of talk about FSC. There was a Boulder meetup this week through meetup.com on Zoom, and the panel was like people like Courtney and Birgit Polyak and Brian Gardner, all people involved in the FSC space. So I think we've had time to kind of get the word out, which is, from even a PR standpoint and a knowledge base, has been really good, actually.
Yeah, they've done a good job. Who is it? Ann McCarthy, I think is her name. Yeah, I've seen a lot of kind of live streams, and she's been on a number of podcasts, like WP Builds, for instance, and I think, or interviews, I guess I should say, with Nathan, and I think she's done a good job, kind of just getting out there and educating people and helping them. And I think you're right that people who are using classic themes aren't really going to see too much. You're going to have a better Gutenberg experience because there have been some nice updates to Gutenberg. Mm-hmm. I was kind of thinking of new users, and where I think that at this point full site editing will be embraced is for people with little or no budget who are trying to create a site on their own, and full site editing is going to give them more tools for that. And often, these people, maybe it's a school teacher or, someone with a local history project or, a fan site or something. They're willing to put in a little more time instead of spending money. And so the ability to customize their site is going to be nice for them. Like I've helped a lot of people over the years where, there's something in the PHP template, like maybe it has the categories showing and they don't want it, or it doesn't have a custom taxonomy showing and they do want it, or something like that. And now people are going to be able to do that level themselves. And so those are the people, I think, initially who are going to benefit from full site editing.
No, I would agree. And the only thing I would say is if this makes people's life easier to DIY their website, I'm all for it. I think what people need to be very careful of is if they're going to DIY their website, maybe they want to bring somebody in to help them lock that site down and take a gander, because I don't know if you've seen the article at the time of this record that broke today, Breaking Computers reporting that over 90 WordPress themes plugins backdoored in a supply chain attack. So, I mean, here we go again. And I think the problem with people who DIY their websites is they actually don't take the time to do the security, to do backups, to do things the proper way.
Yeah, it's a little scary. It's been a couple of years since I did it, but a few years ago, I think I searched for, like the text of the Hello World
Yep.
post, and it's amazing how many websites get installed for people. Like maybe a hosting company installs it for them or something, and it's just Hello World
Yeah.
is the only post on there, and they just haven't gotten around to it. And I just worry there are those sites sitting there, they probably don't have, like you said, a security plugin or things like that. So
I think there's kind of where if somebody's going to do a site on their own, they probably should spend a little bit of money and bring somebody in, just say, lock this thing down for me and be done with it, because it's getting scary and sporting out there. In terms of, before we went to record, you said, and I don't want you to give away the context because we want people to go watch the video. You were working on a block comparison. Which one was that?
I was 16 months ago, I compared Cadence blocks, stackable blocks, and Quibbly blocks.
Yep.
And Quibbly has kind of dropped out of the running. But both stackable and Cadence blocks are going strong. And that was one of the videos of my videos and blog posts that have gotten and keep getting a lot of views. So I thought I'd do an update, and on the eve of full site editing, Cadence has recently come out with their theme builder, and Stackable is really focusing, I think, on being a solution for people wanting to do full site editing.
Mhm.
So I was doing a comparison of those, and it's not a bad thing, but the first thing I noticed is that Cadence has really grown a lot,
Yeah, it has.
in the 16 months. And Stackable has grown, but not at the same rate.
And where can people find that comparison when you finish it?
WebTNG.com
Yeah.
is, the website.
And go check it out, because David's comparisons are always very good and might save you a pile of time down the road. So that's, the important thing there. Um, Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on is, in this community, in the WordPress community, everybody's trying to save money. And we got all these page builders developing. We've seen some LTDs or lifetime deals, and we've seen people just say, I'm not doing lifetime deal. I'm going to charge yearly for the page builder subscription. What's your feeling on an LTD versus a lifetime deal?
Well, the classic wisdom is that, or, the common sense wisdom, whatever, is lifetime deals make sense when the product's young and the company's trying to bootstrap development and not have to take out a lot of loans or,
Mm-hmm.
get investors, give away the company to investors. It does seem that there are a few companies like, Divi still has their lifetime going. I've kind of seen them mention somewhere they might do away with that, but they still have it going. It's, I don't know what it is, like $240 or something.
Yep.
And then you have Oxygen, which we haven't talked about yet, but Oxygen has their lifetime option, and then there's some new ones, Bricks being one that a lot of people have talked about, Bricks Builder, that has a lifetime. And Divi and Oxygen are not new. They seem to, be going. I almost get the sense that Divi could be one of those things where, the new people buying are paying for support and development to keep it going, and it's not
Yep.
self-sustaining. Like if they took away, that if they change the licensing, they might have a hard adjustment. But I've seen the founder of Oxygen say that, it just makes them a lot of money.
Yeah,
So, having the lifetime deal makes them a lot of money. People are, it's reasonably priced, and people are gives them more confidence to
yeah,
take a chance on it.
yeah. It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, even Cadence did an LTD at one time for their entire suite, and they did it, to be fair, for a limited time, and then it disappeared. So I think that's the way to handle that, because what you want to make sure you don't do is sell too many LTDs or lifetime deals and then not generate further income because you're paying support costs for people who got in cheap. And that's what we got to be careful of.
Yeah, I think Cadence actually started to move that direction, and they did have a lifetime separately
Yep.
for the theme and the blocks and everything. They still have a lifetime if you go for the whole bundle.
I have the whole bundle on an
Yeah,
LTD.
so they still have that available, but they did away with the lifetime for the individual products. And I think you're right. Support is a cost that you need that's the reason you're thinking right there. That's the reason that Toolset went away from a lifetime
Yep.
packages. So
Yep. So that's now you had mentioned we hadn't really touched on oxygen, and let's go there. Oxygen is kind of developer centric. What do you like about oxygen, and what don't you like about oxygen?
well, Oxygen actually, I was a little bit cool on Oxygen initially, and then I really jumped into it and did a bunch of videos on it and built a site with it. And I I warmed up to it, but it just seemed like it took a long time to build with it. And I still think other people who are using Oxygen every day dispute this, but I still think it takes longer to build with Oxygen than with other page builders. But you really do get into the code, and you have the option to. It exposes that to you. And I think in terms of dynamic data, Oxygen is the most powerful option.
Yeah.
They just you have conditions built in, you have PHP, uh, you know, element that where you can write your own PHP code. You can edit the style sheets directly with inside the editor and have that reflected in the builder. Just many many features, but it's the kind of thing where for me, if I'm in a hurry, it wouldn't be where I'd go first.
Yeah.
And the other thing with Oxygen is that when you use a theme like any of the good themes like Astra, Cadence, Generate Press, all those, the theme author has really done a lot of work for you. And some of that work is making sure that your layout doesn't go off the rails and kind of explode outside of the boundaries that of your divs and sections and everything that you want. And Oxygen replaces the theme, so to a certain extent the user has to take that responsibility. So it's definitely not for everybody, but I could see building some more sites with Oxygen.
And just to kind of wrap up, is there an up and coming page builder that you really like? Something new in the space?
Well, I mentioned Bricks, and the the developer of Bricks. It's another one of those situations where you have a really talented developer, and he's doing a lot of things right. He's listening to users, and He's been regularly putting out good updates. So that's one I think that is up and coming. And I've noticed a switch with bricks. This happened with oxygen too, is there started to be a switch where people, instead of just talking about it, actually started building sites with it. And then eventually it happened with oxygen, and I'm not sure if it's happening yet with bricks, but with oxygen, you had agencies starting to use it. And so anyway, I'm seeing a lot more discussion in the bricks Facebook group and in their own forums of people actually building sites with it. So it's starting to take off.
And I think it's important with some of these up and comers, because what they do is then force the big, well-known page builders to actually do some stuff and improvise and improve their page builders. So I really think they're really good for the market in that respect.
Yeah, we're lucky having lots of choices.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that was something Michael Edwin in the Dynamic WordPress group says all the time, that we're really lucky to have so many good options.
Yeah, we are. Thanks for this great conversation, David, on page builders. Where can people get a hold of you? Tell us about it, a little bit about your work, your Facebook group, and your website.
So my website is webtng.com, and there's a YouTube channel associated with that. And then a little over a year ago, started a Facebook group, Dynamic WordPress, and just been lucky. They've had really good people joining that group. They're pretty helpful and polite, and it's been a lot of fun. So we talk a lot about page builders and some about dynamic data. Should probably talk more about dynamic data given the name of the group, but also kind of just what's happening in WordPress.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. Have a wonderful day.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. A very special thank you to David for joining me on today's podcast. I really enjoyed the discussion about page builders, and I hope you did too. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, make your business succeed.